If you're a physician who runs your own medical practice and you've been thinking about possibly maybe exiting in one way or the other, maybe retiring or selling the practice, but you thought to yourself, holy smokes, I don't even know where to get started. I don't know how to even start to think about the whole process of selling. You're in the right place. Now, listen, if you've asked that question, how do I sell my practice? Okay. You're not alone. Nobody taught us business in medical school. Nobody taught us about even running the practice in medical school. And certainly, you can imagine that not many people out there are talking about what happens on the other side of having run your practice all these years on the topic of selling. In the last few years, I have looked at so many businesses. I can tell you that with a simple structure in place, it is possible, it is doable, and being able to hand off your baby, your medical practice, off to caring, reliable hands, okay, is not just a pipe dream. It's a possibility, it's a reality. And hopefully, if you stick around here long enough, I will show you the few things that you can possibly have that you should be thinking about putting in place if you want to get your practice sold, not only for high enough price, but also to caring hands. All right. So a little bit about the backstory here. By the way, I'm Chiagozie Fawole. I am a pediatric anesthesiologist. And about, I'll say maybe 4 years ago, got the idea of buying businesses. As I searched for businesses, obviously being in medicine, when I see a medical practice for sale, I'm like, oh, let me take a look. But what I found was that a lot of the medical practices that I came across were not ready for sale. They were not prepared for a sale, just to be very frank. And honestly, it broke my heart because it almost felt like I'll get into the conversations with the doctors and like we had like a kindred kind of bonding. But when I looked at the back and when I looked at the numbers, I'm like, ah, man, as much as I want to buy your practice, it is not ready. And so I said, I don't see anybody talking about these things. Let me go out there and be the voice. Let me go out there and be the person that actually talks to my colleagues and shares with them what buyers are looking for, what professional buyers are looking for, and basically how to prepare and package their businesses for a profitable exit, for an exit that maximizes their years of toil, their years of experience, their years of building those solid relationships with their patients, an exit that leaves their employees feeling like they were valued in the whole transaction, an exit that leaves their patients feeling like they're in great hands, right? Because you didn't build this entire practice just to let it just go to the highest or heck, the only bidder, right? And I'm gonna share with you what I feel like are four things that you should want to put in place or at least be thinking about if you're gonna be if you're going to be thinking about exiting your practice. All right. All right. So, number one will be the people. Okay. When you put your practice up for sale, the buyer that's coming is thinking about the future and very likely the future without you. Okay. Now, in some cases, you can stay on. Some buyers will have you stay on. But the point there is when a buyer is looking at a practice, they're thinking, what will I have left after the seller leaves, after you leave? So, the first thing you have to think about is who are the people in the business that are capable of running the business or practice, right? Our businesses, our practices, our businesses, right? Running the practice when you are gone. Now, this means that if you were historically the only doctor in the practice, if you start to think about your exit, about a sale, it's a good time to start to either bring on a business partner, bring on another physician, whether it's full time or part time. If you've never worked with mid levels, it may not be a bad time to start to think about maybe getting them if the practice model fits that. And obviously, listen, I don't want to get on the soapbox about mid levels, and so I will stay away from that conversation. But I will tell you that in practice, when it is time to sell your practice, you need to have someone or a couple of people in place who are revenue generating providers in the practice if you want to sell your practice for a decent multiple. All right. So number one is the people. Number two will be what processes do you have in place? Now, one of the things that I have seen, or that because I get to interact with a lot of people in private practice, both those that are just getting started, those that are building their practices, I get to hang around even those who coach people about their private practices. And one of the things that I see a lot is that being like in places where you have the doctor as a solo practitioner, there's a lot in the head, right? It's like the entire business is all in here. So by the time you start to think about selling your practice, it has to come out of here and get documented. You need to have systems and processes in place. In other words, like from the moment when somebody expresses interest that they want to work with you, what are the processes that you have in place for getting them from the indication of interest through the doors, you seeing them as the patient in the clinic, getting your front desk folk to get them to book another call. What are your revenue generating systems that you have in place? Are they documented? Does somebody other than that process? And how have you externalized the beauty that happens in your head so that somebody else can take over that practice from you? And part of me, I say business a lot because right now we are buying all kinds of businesses. So my mind still works a lot in just business terms. But this conversation, I'm particularly focusing it on practices because this is where I've seen that there's a significant need and somebody needs to talk about it. Okay. All right. And number three is what do you have in your practice that is, we call it your unique selling proposition, right? Okay, so now you may say, but hold on, Shagazi, I'm a doctor, right? Like I'm not selling cupcakes or something like that. And I'm like, I know, but what is your sweet sauce that will cause patients to come to you as against the other doc or as against the CVS down the street, right? And you may have to get creative here. Okay. Like I know a doc, for example, who runs a practice. I think she's down in Florida somewhere. I forget exactly. But I know that she has like other packages and like other things that she offers her patients that basically endear them to her. Okay. And did I just mix that up? Endear her to them? I don't even know. But they're basically things that are like unique ideas that make her practice stand out, that make her practice like not just a run of the mill thing. So that by the time if she chooses to sell that practice, having those unique programs, preferably if she's identified ways to have other people fulfill on those items, those become her unique things. Now, for some practices, it could be certain either software or just think about something that you can effectively use to, I mean, just make your practice, that thing that makes your practice stand out, right? Will make your practice make more money, but that thing will also make your practice more sellable. If you can say, my practice runs on this system that is unique or whatever, is unique intellectual property that is in the practice, it makes selling your practice like just that better. Like it just makes it better. All right. Fine. All right. So that was number three. Number three was that unique thing that basically packaged your practice, if that makes sense. All right. And then number four is profit. Okay. So I put profit all the way down as number four, even though it may be the most important thing at the end of the day. But I put it as number four because I didn't want you to miss the first three. Because usually when we get into the numbers, ooh, everybody like freezes up and everybody like spazzes out. All right. But let's talk about the profit. Okay. If you want to sell your practice for a good price, for a decent multiple, you need to be profitable. What does this mean? This means you got to look at the P&Ls. This means you need to know what is in that document more than like, this is not a situation where you're like, oh yeah, go talk to my accountant. I don't want to talk to your accountant. I want to talk to you. I want to know what those numbers are. If I see a huge expense, I want to know from you what it is, right? Okay, now again, I understand we didn't learn this stuff in medical school, but if you're going to sell your practice, that P&L has got to be your bedtime story, okay? At least for the next 3 years. And why do I say 3 years? All right. So now this is where I get into the nitty gritty. You're going to need about a 3 year. Okay. So when I come to look at a business or a practice or really anything, There are a couple of things that I look for, okay? Number one is that I want to see 3 years of profit and loss statements and or tax returns. Matter of fact, I will ask for tax returns eventually, but at the minimum, I need to see three years of profit and loss, sometimes called income statements. I also would like to see a current balance sheet, but let's talk about that 3-year profit and loss first. In that profit and loss statement, I will be able to sort of determine, like, over the last 3 years, what your business profitability, what your practice profitability has been, okay? Now, the reason that I mention this is that when people are selling, sometimes you're looking through the P&L and or the profit and loss statement, and you're seeing things and you're like, "That is clearly a personal expense." And I understand business owners want tax write-offs, but if you're gonna sell your business or your practice, that thing that you just wrote off is taken away from the sale value of your practice. And in a world where businesses are valued based on the profit that they make, that item that is an expense that wasn't really an expense could potentially cost you. Every dollar of an expense could cost you $2 to $3, depending on how your practice ends up getting valued. Okay, so what am I saying? Am I saying don't take your deductions for 3 years? No. What I'm saying is if you have any of those things, make sure that when your business is valued, that those items are marked as personal items. Now, the issue about having them on the P&L in the first place is that the buyer may disagree. The buyer may say, no, that is a legitimate business expense. So what I say is if you're starting to think about selling your practice, anything that is personal, keep it personal. Keep it off the business for a while. Let your business show a beautiful, clean profit and loss that is based on what the business's actual expenses are going to be. Okay? Because if you have expenses that are really personal expenses in there, it may be hard to back them out when it comes to the selling of a business, and it would literally cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars on the sale price. All right. All right. So that was why I put that profit at the last one, because I'm like, you know what? I have an entire soapbox on this topic here because the profit matters. Okay. And if you're thinking about selling your business, there are different ways to grow the and maybe, you know what? I should probably make that an entire video in itself. But I'll rattle off a couple of them right now. Number one is to plug the holes. Find the holes in your practice. Maybe i- bills that have not been, sorry, invoices that have not been collected, your accounts receivable. Just making sure that, like, you maximize your operations so that you're not just losing money on a regular basis. Making sure that expenses that are no longer necessary are cut off. Okay. These will help you yourself collect more money. All right. Yeah. You know what? I think that should be its own episode. That should definitely be its own episode. But anyway, so for now, what I'll say is if you are thinking about selling your practice, think about the people, okay? Think about the processes. Think about the packages that you're offering. Think about the profit that you're making. And if you can start to think about those things, then you will start to get yourself ready. But for what may be a 2, 3 year process, maybe, you don't just up and leave a practice. No, you don't. So don't do it when you're burned out. Okay? Plan ahead. All right. I hope this helps you at least have an idea of the things you should probably start to think about. And if at any point you would like to have a conversation, I'm going to leave a link down below. I'll be happy to set up a time and consult with you. But you've built something formidable. It's very affordable to be running a private practice in this day and age. But I certainly would like to make sure that when it's time for you to sell, that you do it from an empowered standpoint, as against feeling like a victim and just being at the mercy of brokers. All right? Take care. Bye.